Leading up to the season 7 finale of Outlander, I'm doing a series of videos talking about my favorite episodes from each season. So this video will be my favorite episode from season 5. Perhaps a controversial opinion, but my favorite episode is episode 9, Monsters and Heroes. So season 5 has a lot of big moments, but I think this moment when Jamie is bit by the snake is my favorite for two reasons. The first being that it really forces him and Roger to bond a little bit. And this is something that I think as a book reader, Roger's portrayed slightly different than in the show. And so, it's kind of a redemption arc for Roger for people who didn't care so much for his depiction in the show. He's a fish out of water in this time. And I think it's important for people to remember that Brianna had the benefit of Frank being her father and teaching her how to, shoot and hunt and be outdoorsy. And so she goes back in time with a lot more experience, I would say, in how to survive in this time. And Roger does not. And so for Jamie, having a man who cannot protect his daughter be his son-in-law has been something very difficult for him to grapple with. Then you add on the resentment that Roger holds towards him for the events of season 4, and there's just a lot of misunderstandings between Jamie and Roger, but I will say that Roger undoubtedly respects Jamie quite a lot, and vice versa. But Jamie's respect for Roger has to be earned, and I think it's been nice over the course of season 5 to watch that relationship grow. And so when Roger is the one there, when Jamie is bit by this venomous snake, and it becomes very quickly a more dire moment for Jamie, I think there's so much great acting happening between the two of them to convey so many unspoken emotions between these two men, but also Jamie, I think, has this moment where he's almost glad that Roger's the one that's there with him, and there's a lot to unpack there that I think is just really fascinating. And keep in mind, 2 episodes before this is the Ballad of Roger Mack episode, which was, I think, one of the strongest episodes of season 5, and so Roger, in his own right, is still dealing with the trauma of that and figuring out how to exist again, really, after going through something that was just so ridiculously, impactful on who he is and his identity, and he's already feeling lost in this time. So very big episode for Roger as well as for Jamie. This is also a great example of, Claire can do a lot in this show, and she has, found ways to make something out of nothing so many times and is always there to, save Jamie, but we're put in a situation in this episode where she really doesn't have the resources at hand to save him, and there's a great deal of panic in that. Jamie, asks Roger to complete a very important task for him in this episode, and your heart just hurts for him when you watch Roger dragging him through the woods trying to get him to his wife. And we've seen this so many times before with Jamie and Claire, but it always just feels new to me, even though it's the same old song and dance between them. One of them gets injured, Jamie, and Claire has to save him, but I don't know, there's something just different about this one in this episode. But the parallels are obvious too, and so, I really enjoyed this scene where we were watching Jamie, look up at Claire, angry about the situation and groveling over, her sticking him in the butt with some needles and things, and that is something that we've seen him do time again when she's fixing his shoulder, when she's, bandaging him up. He doesn't like the pain that he's going through, but he'll always know that Claire is going to do her damnedest to not let him die. And in this scene, there's actually a good amount of dialogue referring back to that. Claire does a callback to season 3 when Leary had shot him in the shoulder, and she had to do more or less the same thing for him then. I just think there's a lot of humor laced into a pretty dramatic moment here between the two of them. And ultimately, at the end of the episode, when Jamie is, very near death and dying, and Claire is able to bring him back to life, there's so much about that scene in the books that the show could have done differently or filmed differently. And I think this whole episode is really a testament to the relationship that Katrina Balfe and Sam Heughan had formed playing these characters, because it was so believable and sad, but also uplifting, but also reminds you very, very easily of how dependent upon one another these two are. And I just really, really loved the portrayal of that whole part of the episode at the end there, when Claire is able to bring him back to life. And again, lots of conversation happened at the time that this episode aired about how she brings him back to life, but if you can kind of, overlook that humor about the situation, I think you are watching a really, really beautifully well acted scene between two people who very well know their characters.